I am Melissa, and this is the Book Break. And today we're at the Salt Lake FanX Comic Convention, and we're going to talk to some really awesome people. So many authors, artists, just fun stuff. Let's go talk to them. This is Lee Durfee. I know he looks scary, but he's actually really nice. All right, Brian, tell me about your book. Now, this one came out in 2017?
Yes, this is A Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. It came out 2 years ago. Book 2 just came out a couple months ago, The Blackest Heart, and so far it's doing well.
And now, this is a epic fantasy?
Epic fantasy. It's been compared to George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones or Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, Stephen Donaldson, David Eddings, all the epic fantasy writers, I've been compared to them in one way or another.
Yeah, that's great. So you got to give me a little more for our fans here. Tell me a little bit about your characters.
Okay, so the characters in this book, it's called the Five Warrior Angels series. So it's book 1 of the Five Warrior Angels. The Five Warrior Angels were these mythical religious icons that banished all evil into the underworld thousands of years ago by using magical weapons.
Awesome.
But now those magical weapons are lost in the, they're just lost, and people think that if they find them, they can become very powerful, almost as powerful as the warrior angels themselves used to be. So that's kind of the basis of the story. And so there's a lot of political intrigue about who's going to find the weapons of the warrior angels, and there's a lot of you've got slaves and bishops and knights and assassins and gladiators and thieves and all sorts of characters vying to find and gather up these weapons so they can be the most powerful people in the land.
That's so great. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is you are with a big publisher.
Yes.
For those of our fans that are aspiring to be authors, let's give them a realistic expectation. How long ago did you write The Forgetting Moon, and from then, how long did it take to get published? Because that's a big thing.
Well, let me boil down about a 2-hour answer into a couple of seconds.
That would be great.
I got the idea for this book when I was just a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
So really the idea was percolating in my mind ever through my teenage years, through my 20s. It wasn't until I got into my 30s that I really settled down to write, where I really got serious about it. Yeah. And from there I wrote one big, long horror novel, which was my first novel. Kind of everybody does a novel that's not very good to begin with. I tried to get that published, it never got published. So then I focused on my epic fantasy, and it took me about 2 years to do the first draft and about 3 or 4 more years to go through and edit it and get it polished enough that I felt comfortable sending it off to the publishers. Once I sent it off to the publishers, I got an agent first, so you need to get an agent,
right,
which is just as hard as getting a publisher.
Right.
But once I got my agent, he sold the book pretty quick after that, because I have a pretty reputable agent who does a really good job of getting book deals. So once that happened, so I would say 5 to 7 years, I think, from beginning to final published product.
Wow. And then once your publisher accepted it, how long until this was out on the shelves?
I would say about 18 months.
Okay.
From the time I signed the contract to the time the book came out.
Awesome. So another thing that I know about you, Brian, is you have a really interesting day job.
I do.
Please tell us about that.
So, like most beginning authors, I consider myself a beginning author. I've only been in the business a couple of years. I still hold on to my day job. I work at the Utah State Prison. I'm a sergeant there. I started as a correctional officer. Now I run all of the Utah State Prison libraries. We've got 6 libraries down at the Utah State Prison. I run them all with the help of some other officers, and we get books, we do writing classes, we teach creative writing, we do literacy programs, we make sure all the libraries are stocked with books, and then we provide security for the libraries when inmates are in there. Another thing that I did, and my friend James Dashner, who wrote The Maze Runner, is we put on the first ever in the history of the world Prison Comic-Con
Oh my
at the Utah
gosh.
State Prison, where we.
When did you do that?
This was about 2 Octobers ago.
Wow.
So it was about 2 years ago.
Wow,
And
that's
and
awesome.
the inmates, we got book donations and comic book donations from publishers and writers. Writers were autographing their books to the Utah State Prison. We probably have over 100 books autographed to the Utah State Prison from different authors that are going to go in a display case. And we watched all the Maze Runner movies because James Dashner was there, and then he did a presentation, and then I did a presentation. It was a mini Comic-Con. Now I wanted to have like cosplayers and Darth Vader outfits and Harley.
That probably wouldn't work in the prison.
And I wanted to have Harley Quinn outfit, but the warden didn't go for it.
Yeah.
But we did what we did, and it was a pretty good success, and the inmates loved it.
Oh, I bet. Okay, so I gotta ask, are your books in the library at the prison?
They are in the library at the prison, and it's a little bit of a daunting fact to know that every felon in Utah is a fan of, of my fantasy novels. But I've really received nothing but positive feedback from all the inmates that have read it. And to be honest with you, most of them out there have read it at this point. They have a lot of time to read.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so we've got the first book, the second book. When does the third book come out?
The third book, I'm about done writing that, so it's going to be like 18 months to 2 years before that.
Okay, so we should look for it in 2021.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with me, Brian. It was so interesting to talk to you.
Yes, of course.
And thank you for joining us today on the Book Break. We'll talk to you next time.
My name is Art Coombs. I'm the CEO of Cambia Corporation and the author of Don't Just Manage, Lead. My eldest daughter is Kelly. I've got a son, AJ. I've got a son, Kai. And then I've got Mac, Mary Ashley Coombs. First and foremost, my passions are my family, my parents, my kids, my family at work. I love what I do, and I love who I do it with. I've been giving this presentation for many years, and I decided to take my kids to one of the presentations. And as a result of them attending, my children said, "Dad, why don't you write a book?" Real leaders focus first, I believe, on the person and are empathetic because they're human just like everyone else. They're not scared to say, "Hey, I made a mistake." They're not scared to shed a tear. They're not scared to laugh and show emotion. Real leaders lead with vulnerability. And in that vulnerability is the very thing that attracts people to follow them. That's why people want to follow them. Enjoy the book, and remember, people don't want to be managed, they want to be led.
I wrote What the Single Eye Sees actually as individual talks or sermons that I gave in sacrament meeting. And every time I gave one of those talks, I had lots of people ask me for copies. It got to the point where I was sending out dozens of copies of the talks to people, and I thought maybe I should organize them into a book so they'd be accessible by more people. The principal focus of the book, as it's stated in the subtitle, is faith, hope, charity, and the pursuit of discipleship. And so I hope people who read the book feel like they have a better understanding of the relationships that are what are faith, hope, and charity. One of the key principles outlined in the fourth section of the Doctrine and Covenants for discipleship is to have your eyes single to the glory of God. That's a New Testament concept that Joseph Smith felt inspired to include in his discussion about the qualifications for being part of the work in this era. And so I use it as part of the title in order to emphasize the I single to the glory of God.